caption. Okay, so we'll do lab 7. I know some of you already got started. You're going to use the current version of Kali, which is not the 24.3, but 2025.3. You can go to the website. And then click on the virtual machine, and we're going to download the virtual box. This will take a few minutes for it to come down. If you're using Edge, make sure you save as, or save it so that way it goes into the downloads folder. Okay. So I have my Kali downloaded, and I would right click it, show more options, 7-zip, and extract files. Remember, we have to use 7-zip to extract. Otherwise, it would not work with the regular extract all option. So again, right click the downloads that you have downloaded from Kali website, and then go to show more option, and then 7-zip, then extract files. So once you do that, you will have a regular folder without the zip icon. Remember, do not run your Kali from the zip folder, but extract it using 7-zip first. Then you would have the folder without the zip icon. This is where your virtual machine will be. So I will load my virtual box. No, I do not want the website, sorry. So you can search for Oracle or VirtualBox. Let me remove this one first. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and so once I extracted, after I downloaded, the next few step would be able to load the machine into your VirtualBox list. And before you start, make sure you give it more RAM and more processor. We always do this for this class only because the tool that we use is resource intensive. We want to make sure that we have enough RAM for the OS and the application and the processor to handle that. So it will respond quicker. If you have started it without changing the system setting, you can shut it down and then change it and then reboot it. Otherwise, you will run into a little bit of a slowdown when you get to the scan option. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click add. Go to my downloads, find my extracted folder from today, open that up and open up the subfolder and find the VirtualBox file in blue. And we're going to click open. So make sure that we extract and then add the virtual machine. But before I click start, I want to change the settings by giving it more RAM. So in the general tab on the bottom, you would change this to 8,000 or megabyte for RAM. And then the processor, I'm going to change the number 2 to number 4, which gives you more core. So once I have the RAM and the processor set up, I'm going to go ahead and click start. So we are going to use Volatility 3. You will access your command line in Linux or terminal to be able to run your program. This program is written in Python like most of the security tools. You will need to compile it, right, using a GCC. So you will install, making sure, I think Kali already has Python 3, but you need to install pip if you want to use pip command. Somewhere right here is where you are going to you're gonna do the sudo apt install build essential. and you are gonna run a GCC to be able to build it. Once you build the program after you have downloaded its directory, you are going to, I'm sorry, this is where you build it. You're gonna access the folder and then you are going to build the file for the setup. And then you're gonna use the setup to be able to run. Now, because it is written in Python, you are going to always use the Python version that it's written in and be able to run the module. So module is just a file that is written in programming language. And so you are going to do a -H to be able to see your options for help. So once you get here, right? Then you are going to, and you can copy and paste in Kali, which is nice. So you don't have to do the USB mount. If you don't want, you can just download the stucknets.vim directly. If you cannot download for some reason, if you look on your assignment lab page, right, lab 7 page, I actually put the vmem.zip there. So you can also download it and put it on your USB. Go to devices in VirtualBox and add your USB to your virtual machine and then move it that way. Okay, so if you cannot visit the site to download inside your virtual machine, you can always download it through the Canvas page. It's small enough for me to actually put it on there. So, okay, so I will walk you through some of this. So I'm going to log in. So I have my virtual machine set up, which takes care of part A. I'm now logged in. And once I'm logged in, I'm going to finish step 12, which is going to load my terminal. So click the square black box. So it talks about how we need to be able to add the virtual or the memory image that we're using. Volatility framework, unlike the regular application, you actually have different features and modules. So they are separate modules that's combined for different functionality of analysis. This allows you to run Python language for different type of purpose. So it's able to use it for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So it is cross-platform. Now it is really good for using this tool for crash analysis or your dump file. So it tells you the compatibility with that. You can also analyze like virtual machines, okay? Because virtual machines uses also RAM, just like how you change your RAM space. So in the case that if your server is on a virtual machine, you can also use to analyze the virtual machine memory snapshot, right? So it tells you some information about the capability. You can use it to also look at DD or E01, which is what we see with a lot of the forensic toolkit. Now, before volatility framework, you would need to create an image, right? I already provide you with the memory image, but you can use FTK Imager, Helix, Lime. We talked about other tools in our assignment today. So you have options with your tool on how you create the memory snapshot or memory image. But this tool is to use to analyze the image that has been created, which is the stucknets.vmem that we are going to extract and analyze. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to clone, we're going to bring down the application folder by doing a git clone in the terminal. So once you have your terminal open, you can copy and paste this. I'm going to do that so that way I don't mistype. So I just simply copy the command and then paste the selection, right? So it's gonna pull down everything and it's gonna put it into the Kali home folder. Then I'm gonna do the updates. It's very important that you do updates in the early stage for your Linux systems that you use the tools with. And then put in the password to push the updates. This will take a few minutes. And that will help you with the software packages, things like that. So it's going to spend a little bit of time to update, even if you have the current Kali version, right? Because the development can be quick on some of the packages, so we need to push the update. Then we are going to install the Python 3 pip. So sudo apt install Python 3, because Python 2 is deprecated, no longer used, no longer support. Python 3-pip. And it asks you, are you sure you want to do this? Yes. So press Y to continue. Now, if you don't install Python 3 pip, you just cannot use Python install package command. So pip will not work if you're using pip command. And pip is a common command if you're using a Python tool, right? A tool that's written in Python. So once I have everything there, I'm going to go ahead and install the build essential. Ultimately, you are going to use a C compiler to be able to build the setup file for the installation. So here, I'm going to go ahead and run the build essential install. It says that it's already at the newest version. And then I want to check my compiler version. So when you use the GCC -- version, Debian Linux comes with C compiler, right? So we can check. So it tells you that's the version. Now, since I've already downloaded, and a quick way, if you cannot find your Volatility 3 folder, because sometimes they change the folder location, I always do an ls command to check all my folder in my home directory, which is I'm currently in. So I see that I do have a Volatility 3 folder. So to troubleshoot this in the future, if it throws an error that it cannot find the directory, just look at your folders or your directory inside the location where you at. So you ask yourself, which folder, which directory, where am I at in the directory, and how do I access the directory for that application? So when you did a git pull earlier, it's going to bring down the directory that contains the application code, right? And we're going to run the code for the memory analysis. So now I need to do a change directory to the folder for the application. So Volatility 3, right? Which is what you see there on the right side. So if you don't have that at the beginning, you have to do the git pull. Now, once you are in that directory, it shows that on your path. And I like to do ls before I start because that helps me see. So I am going to run setup.py, right? And then we're going to do the install, and we're going to run the vol.py. So let me see. We can do Python 3 setup.py build. Yeah, so it's not seeing this here. I don't see it here, you see? Give me a second. I think you can run, they don't require you to build anymore, so let me see. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Yeah. So you can skip step 19. Okay. Maybe that they have already fixed the problem with the actual program package. So I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so when I do ls in the volatility 3 folder, you see this vol.py. This is a Python program that we need, right? And the way that you run it directly with Python is you use a Python 3 command, and then you just need to access the module. So that's a file that you need, which is in Python, and then you can just run it. So you can skip step 19. I don't think you have to run the setup. And so when you use the -H option or the switch, it basically tells you these are the different capability that it can, you can use different scanner, right? Okay, so I'm going to scroll up so you can see it's a long list. So when I run this, it shows me the usage of it. H is for help, and help shows you all the additional options. So what can I do to print the SID for the owning of the each processes? So all you have to do is go down and find that information on that list. So the point in this is to help you find the switch, the option that you add with the command, so that way you can see your ID information for your process. Okay. So once you access the help option, go down and find the information for SID. Now, on the bottom, it's going to tell you there are plugins that you can use because it is a framework. You can bring in, you can add some of the plugin to do a specific thing, right? You can have a certain functionality by using the plugin. So if I'm analyzing RAM on a Linux system, I can use the Linux plugin here, okay? And there are different options for Linux, and along with, you would see that there will be Windows and Mac OS, okay? Now, if you are analyzing memory for Mac, there's a Mac section that you would see there, and it uses some similar commands. So you're going to see when you do the Windows one. So depending on the OS that you are working with, as far as your memory capture, okay? And then there's Windows. So to answer this question, you just got to look through that list and be able to find the information. So if I need to use a command to look at Windows registry hives, right? So scroll down to the Windows section and then see if you can find any kind of command that would help you find the registry information. Okay. Any questions? So if you don't know how to start using the Volatility 3 tool, you just need to make sure you access the directory, and then inside it you should find the vol.py, the Python file that you need for the program. You will execute it using Python 3 command. You don't need to do the build and install. I think that they took this off now. It might be tedious to do this, so the developer, they changed the. So if you don't have the setup.py, you don't have to build the setup to do the install. You can just run it directly with Python. Okay. So these are a lot of the options. So we're going to use some plist right? To look at the list of processes in Windows memory image, we will also use PS-Tree. This is a plugin for us to look at the parent process ID compared to just the process, right? So you might have process that is stem from other processes. So the parent process is where it stemmed from. So there are options. So the registry information, you can scroll down further and you should be able to find that. Okay. Yep. have issue with downloading Volatility? Yeah, it's not NAT. It has an IP. So when you ping the loop back to respond, that tracing route to the
I gotta do P2 to get
yeah, it cannot connect, right? Yeah, it's disrupted, so,
and
yeah, the host connection through the app itself. So if the app is on the outside, but somehow the app is not able to do service to um, yeah, it's not able to trace the hub, so that means your virtual machine is next day. Yeah, and then, or if you want, you can restart, shut the host machine down and reboot, but you might run into the same problem. And I think it's this app, the VirtualBox app on this machine.
This is the first time we do it the entire thing.
Yeah, so it's not the VN, it's actually the host with the app. So, yeah, so save your work and then you can.
Try doing sudo something.
Yeah, I looked and when you do the trace route, it doesn't trace it. So that means that you can disable yeah, that's probably a good idea to just see if you can turn it off and turn it back on for your interface adapter. But okay, so we're gonna download the file inside the VirtualBox. So open up your Firefox for step 22. Again, right, 19 you can skip. And then paste in the URL for my Google Drive. and you would see the vmem.zip. We're just going to click download, right? And then it tells you it cannot scan, download anyway. So it will take a minute or so to come down. You need to extract it because it is a zip file. So the way that you extract it in Linux is if it's .zip, you can unzip, right? It's not a tar command. Okay, so now it's completed with the download. So you can just copy and paste this into the virtual machine browser, which is Firefox. And you will have access to my Google Drive. And then what you do is you are going to click download anyway, right? And then once that download is downloaded, it's going to go into your downloads folder. Okay. So it tells you that you need to move it into your volatility folder. Remember that your application has to have access to that file. So when you extract it, it's in the application folder. Okay. Otherwise, you have to move the application to it. So open up the folder and then go to your downloads. Right. Here's my downloaded memory image. I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go to Kali folder. And then go to Volatility 3 folder and just paste it there. Okay. You can drag it. So again, go to your downloads folder, copy it or drag it to your, well, it's probably better to copy and then go to Kali folder. That's your home folder for your account. And then open up Volatility 3 and paste it there. You need to do step 23. Otherwise, you're going to run into problem extracting. So once I finish that, I close out my Windows here and come back to my terminal. And then I would need to do an unzip command. So make sure if it finds it, it's gonna bold it. If it's not bolded, that means that you didn't move it. So it's gonna inflate that, and that's gonna take like a second to do. Then what you're gonna do next is you are going to pull down some of, I know that last year when I did this, there was some issue with this too, but we're gonna clone from so we have to have a JSON file. So you're gonna go ahead and clone this directory from GitHub. So we're gonna paste. And then it's inside your Volatility 3 folder, then you're going to move into it. Because now there's additional Go package that is working with the application, so you have to clone it for the app to work with JSON. Okay, so we're going to go cd dwarf to dwarf2 JSON. And then sudo apt install gcc go. Type in your password and say yes to continue. So we are going to build the package for Go. It's going to take a few minutes. So it's going to install the GCC, so the compiler for Go, and then we're going to build the Go. And then we're going to install the app. So now I can do a Go build. And then sudo apt install dwarf2 JSON. Okay. So with this, we have to add the symbols so that way the app will fully work. So these are additional packages that you would need for the framework to fully function. And throughout like the last few years, I kind of dove into troubleshooting this because sometimes when you go through the documentation, it doesn't give you all the details. Volatility 3 is just, that's how it is. So you have to troubleshoot sometimes some open source apps like this. Okay. Um, oh, is it not able to, let me see. Okay, so when you get to step 28, let me run that again. Maybe it's not able to access the symbol. Yeah. So let me look. Give me a second. Okay, so it built that. It cannot. Let me run it real quick. I think you can do 29 without having the symbols. You might get stuck in some of the command and module. Okay, perfect. It does. Okay, so skip this part for 28. I think after it builds the doc.json, you don't need to get the symbol file. Okay, so but you need to do a CD and then move back into the app folder, which is the Volatility 3, and then you can run the 29 step. And it should be really quick. If you have 8 gig of RAM, it's gonna tell you what you need to know about that RAM image. Okay, so here it would tell me that this is the version of OSs that I worked with. It is a Windows Intel system. The root directory is Windows C, so you can see. So we know that the OS is Windows, right? Because basically I'm running a command for the memory analysis with for a Windows machine to find if it is a Windows system. And it would tell me the version of the Windows and then the timestamp of the machine. So that means that it was installed, right? April 13, 2008, which is a while ago. And then how many processor? So let me see. NT versions, machine type, CDS version. So it does interpret some of the symbol from your symbol file that you created or you downloaded from step 25. But if you don't have processor information, but you have the image date, that's fine. It might not be able to pull. So they change some of the information over time, so that's okay. And then in the next part, you are going to use other commands like plist, pstree, pscan, and psxview. And so we are going to use a plist first. And some scanner will actually take a little longer. Okay, it depends on the type of scan. So plist in Linux, when you do a plist, ultimately it's a processor list, right? We talked about this in the lecture. So it's gonna pull, and you want to put in your target memory capture file here. So if you have a different file, like a .mem, like abc.mem, you need to put that here as that's what it needs to be accessed. And then if it's the Windows, you would do Windows. If it's Mac OS, remember how we looked at the help? You would see the help options and you would plug in the command that you would use for the certain OS, right? So in this case, we're gonna look at the processes list on the Windows system where the RAM was captured, which is for this. And if you know about StuckNet, it was created for a nuclear plant, right? And this was done a while back. So we know that StuckNet is created by United States, right? But we don't know which company or which person did it. And it was related to what you see with nuclear for Iran. And so what we would see is that this is the capture of the image with StuckNet malware. And so when you do it, the -F here means file, and then the file of your memory image. Okay. And then you would do a plist command to be able to look at your processes. Now, it's not very clean with the output. You're going to see that it might be a little bit hard to read, but you have timestamp information. So, and you have process information. Okay. Let me expand it so we can see it a little better. Oops. All right. So here are the executable, the CSRSSEXE. This is the executable for the application and also your service host. So you see various executable that was running, right? And it shows you the actual log time for those executable from the capture. Like command prompt right here, ipconfig right here, right? And various things. So what you see is the capture was created. There's win login, so it's authentication right there. So you see some executable, and for the malware, some executable is related to that malware. And so that's what we kind of need to find out, right? So it gives you some information like your win login, your services, your service host. If you open up the folder in Windows File Explorer, you would see explorer.exe. And it would also give you like process ID number or parent process ID number, your PPID. So that is kind of like the purpose of your plist or PS list. Then what you can do is you can you can use another plugin called the PS tree, right? Similar, and this is for Windows because the target system, the the MEM is captured from the Windows system. So we're gonna run a PS tree. This gives you a little bit more hierarchy, but it also sometimes it's hard to read, like I said before, right? We also see the same processes because it came from the same capture, but it also shows like the related processes in order in a tree format. Okay. So it tells you here that the last two processor listed would be your explorer.exe and maybe reader.sl.exe. If it's not indented, while the reader.sl is indented, which means that one is a parent and one is a child, a subprocess. So you would have the PS tree gives you the hierarchy in the processes. Which one is following another process or related to another process, right? So that's the point, is sometimes you would have a group of processes that would be, so the indentation helps you kind of identify which one is the child and which one is the parent. And the way that it's indented is with the little asterisk. So when you have more asterisk, that is just indented compared to fewer asterisk here. Okay? So I know it's not very clean, but because we didn't format it, and then your memory location, your addresses. Okay. So we just need to look at the last two processes. So go to the bottom. I just want you to look at that, right? So there's vmtray.exe and procom. So that's process common.exe, but you can see other type of processes that we found in the last scan or the last plugin. Okay. Any question? Now you're going to use PSScan, and this is specifically for hidden processes or inactive processes. Some malware would have hidden processes, right? Like rootkit, and it basically is waiting, right? Or hidden so that way it cannot be detected. So you are going to run a PSScan for Windows. And that allows you to see hidden processes compared to the others that we just did. So you're going to see the same list of processes, but in this one, it also pull out additional processes, right? You would see there are additional processes compared to the last one. Okay. So take a screenshot, compare the output to PSList or PSScan to find anomalies, identify the differences between your PSScan output and in the two prior steps. So when you look at those, right, so in the PS tree, it gives you the hierarchy in your parent and sub processes. But the intention for PSScan is see if you can find any additional processes that you didn't see in the last two steps. That's the important part. How are you doing? Got it?
Yeah, right here.
You're in it. You're already in here. It actually wants to be, so put the CV space back up. Space back up. Yeah, you only need to do video on top of it. Yeah, look at your path. Okay, now, so once you get to 32, you should be able to see the differences, and then you can also run a mal find. Sometimes you don't find anything running this particular command, sometimes you do, right? So if you have code injection for malware, mal find will get you the information. Okay, so we are gonna run this. The reason why I emphasize malware a lot, because many of you are in the cybersecurity program, and this is what you're going to be doing for some part, right? Oh, sorry. So, and it's good to put Volatility 3 on your resume. Not everybody can use this tool, you know? So just getting it to work is just a task on its own. Okay. So it does give you some information there. Now, if you're using a different memory capture that doesn't contain some of your injected code, it won't be able to find it. But You can see, for those of you who like low-level programming, you can find right here. This is for an Intel. So you would see there's pointer information. So this is it's looking at a lower level. So you have each of the executable, especially the LSASS. This particular, and then each of the executable, each of the processes, it's giving you more information. So if you read, right, so it will give you the ranges of the injected code, but ultimately we want to find some processes information. So if you compare, I think the service host, yeah, the CSRSS.exe, that's kind of important. So these are all disabled, right? These are instructions at low level, you can see. So the LSASS-exe, you can see that it has multiple processes there. So these are related processes that would be tied to code injection. Okay. So identify those processes. Usually just scroll down and list them. Okay, then the last few parts, you are going to do network connection. So if you want to do analysis to see if there was any kind of established network connection in that capture, you can do a net scan. So if it throws an error like this, let me see. Yeah, NetScan might not be part of the plugin, or it could be the symbol that so that's okay. Some of the function is not, it's failing, right? But ideally, it's supposed to give you the protocol, the source system, right? And the destination system, kind of similar to the ARC table, but it's supposed to pull the network state. So it's not able to execute all the functions. I'll run it again. Yeah. So your kernel module so it's failing. So this one you don't have to do, but you can screenshot it in case you get an error. And then for dynamic link library, DLL is often related to processes, and these processes sometimes is tied to your malware. You saw this when we did the Wireshark lab, right? The DAT along with the DLL files. So this particular tool, Very Info, is going to give you the PE files. And PE is known as portable executable files. This is gonna sometime they say that when you run Very Info, ideally you should run it in a different terminal. You can have multiple terminal windows running concurrently. You can also use DLL list. So using this plugin, you're able to run multiple commands like getSit, DLL list. But we're just gonna run this one and the next one, which is the DLL list. See how it's really, really extended? So it will drop like this. So it gives you all the dynamic library for the processes. Each of the process, you're going to see that it has many DLL files that it uses. If we are looking at a specific process that's malware related, we might need to look at like the dynamic library that's used for that malware, for example, right? So even with explore.exe, which is opening your file explorer like this, right? You also have like a lot of other processes, but the malware can also use explore to navigate into or to locate like a specific files or folder to target. So you would see all the dynamic library that it would use for a certain task. So we're going to focus on the CSRSS.exe process. So you need to go and look at that particular exe and look at the dynamic library for the RAM. It is the executable that is related to the malware. So scroll up and find it. Okay. I know it's kind of long, but. All right. Then we're going to do DLL list. You can press the up arrow key a couple of times so it brings you to the bottom of your terminal. Okay, so DLL list is a little bit less compared to what you see with Very Info, where it's just a shorter list. So you can provide us a screenshot for that. And it only lists the dynamic libraries, right? So it still lists the processes, but it lists the dynamic library locations and the address location. So in the OS where it is located and in the RAM where it is located. And then it also gives you a disable or enable. Now compared to the last one, you can take a look at the screenshot to see how that is different. But you're always going to have the process ID and the related location for your dynamic library with your process address. So describe the difference between the two. And then you're going to do the get SID. So if you want to know what getSID does, go to the beginning section. It talks about it would get all the SID for the security identifier for the user accounts that's on the system that requires for the processes. So, you know, you would start with this if you want to look at like users SID. So can we find some users? You do have like groups. So each of the executable, it would tie to specific group of users or specific user. Like for example, this one has everyone group that been around for in the earlier Windows version. So your SID would pertain to your group membership and your user account. So there are some, so you have local users here. You have domain users here. So in this particular capture, you don't see a specific account. There's some login session for the local user. But in some other capture, you might see like, you know, an account like Bob or whoever that's logged in as. But you do see membership and some information with the SID. And you can compare this to the authentication server. It does have the login session, login locally session. And then for registry Hive, we will do this one. So it will tell me the location, so the address location for the scan. So the output for that is just the physical location where the registry is stored. So you see the address. We talked about physical address today. That's the physical address. And then the Hive list. So this year is better than last year because last year I had a lot of issues with some of these commands as they modified the plugins, but you would see that it mostly is working. So you would see the Hive list, right? Like, and also the related location for that. Like if I go to the registry, I can navigate to these locations. We talked about user class.dat, user.dat in the last one, nt user.dat. So if you want to find it, that's where it is, right? For this particular system, it is under network services because it is related to the domain user, and then here's your SAM and security. And then, so answer the question, how many physical or virtual memory addresses are listed? So you have the addresses here, just count them up. And then how many addresses are different from the last output? So if you compare, right, we actually have more on this, on the second output compared to the previous step. So if you try to match them up, you do see that you have like, and you can count them up and compare too. So you do have some slight difference, but in general, they're all the same. And then look at where SAM is located. You see that here. Just 2 more steps and we're done. Okay. And then lastly, we can do the Hive scan. So I did the Hive scan, so this is probably repetitive. 41 and 38 is the same. So you don't have to do 41. Okay. We can read that out. So 41 and 38 is the same. But if you want, you can screenshot it. So you can also use like print key if you want to do the print key. I don't know why I have it on as a header. And then 42 is also, we have done that before, but if you answer, you can run it again and you can look for process ID 608 that will be related to the malware and look at the address location and you should be done. So if you rerun it, it doesn't take very long to run because the image is very small. So look for Let me see if it finds 608. So WinLog in 624, 624, 600. I think it's 600. Let me see if there's 680. Maybe I had mistyped it. Yeah. Let's see what 680. Yeah, so 680. Sorry, I had it reversed. 680. And you should be able to see that we said that this might be the one. And then you should also look at 600. Your CSRSS.exe. Yeah, but the 680 instead of 608. 680. Okay. So we learned that volatility can be used to analyze memory image, right? For specific OS, it works with all 3 OSs. You can run specific plugin for, a certain type of scan and also a certain type of OS. You can look at, injected code, OS information, timestamp for your processes, parent processes. We went over that. Registry information if you're analyzing a Windows system. Let's see what else. Ideally, you should be able to look at network services if the system has network services stored. And then dynamic library, we learn about that. Dynamic libraries that are used for each of the process. So much more, but this is only a very small fraction of what this tool can do. I highly encourage that you look at their documentation, explore it. This is definitely a good tool to add to your resume. The people who know. Okay. When they look at your resume, Volatility 3. And as you go through, sometime you need to troubleshoot a certain plugin, you will learn more about the tool. But ultimately, it gives you physical address location along with virtual address location. And so if you're running apps or malware is using certain resources for process, like memory for processes, you would see, right? So the change I made was step 41 is a repeat. You can rerun it, but it's a repeat of the prior step. Like 38, and then 42, look at process ID 680, not 608. And you should be able to see the memory address location for it. And then when you're done, you just simply shut it down, answer the question, what did you learn about volatility framework? How can you use this to analyze malware? But it's not limited to that. It is really made for that, right? But you can use it to do memory analysis for sure. Okay. So when we finish, and this type of tool changes over time too. So sometime you need to troubleshoot it. Shut down now. Okay, so all the packages that we downloaded, some of it I have added later on, like the JSON part. When I realized that, oh, they converted some of the stuff to Go language and then you have to build it for Go. So, and then you have to have the right symbols for certain plugins. Otherwise, you see that the NetScan one was kind of funky. But okay, let me stop.